here. So a riskier...
What a game. Yep. What a win by Carlsen.
What better way to celebrate Valentine's Day, the day I'm recording this, than with a match made in heaven, Hikaru versus Magnus in the Speed Chess Championship Final 2023. Now, I'm not going to wish you happy Valentine's Day here. I'm conscious that we've got 96% male watchers of this channel. YouTube tells us everything. That could get a bit weird. Instead, we'll dive into some chess here, because this is a cracker of a game. Daniel puts it best, what a game, he says. I'll show that clip again soon. Now, Magnus with white, 5 minutes on the clock, plus he gets a second back per move. That's called increment. Hikaru the same, and Magnus goes pawn e4 here. We get e5 in response. Knight f3, knight c6 defending the pawn, and bishop b5, a Spanish game, or Roy Lopez. We get knight f6 in response, the Petrov defense. Boo, boring. Why do I say that? Well, it's got a reputation for being very drawish. One which has been cultivated by former world champion Vladimir Kramnik back before he went all Ash Ketchum on us, going after the cheaters. He had Garry Kasparov banging his head against a brick wall in this variation. What's Magnus got up his sleeve? Well, after d3, Hikaru goes bishop c5, and now I'm drawing on the board the main moves here for white. But what does Magnus do? True to his style, he takes us down a little sideline with bishop a4. Very unusual. You don't normally move the same piece twice in the opening. If you remember nothing from this game, just remember that. Apply it to your own next games. Why not? Well, you're losing time with the same piece, right? Not casting the king, not developing the others. Why is Magnus doing it? Well, he's getting Hikaru a bit out of book, right? I guess that's the idea. Too deep for me. We get d6 on the board. Both players castle. c3 looks for some central expansion in the future, and now both players give the king a little bit of Lufthansa on these squares here. Bishop b6 tucks back, anticipates d4. We get knight b to d2, and now Hikaru, inspired by Tony Miles, goes pawn to a6. A little move there. Why do I say that? Well, the great Anthony Miles, British player, known as Tony, once played this on move 1 against the reigning world champion Anatoly Karpov and won the game. I'll have to cover that one day. And on another side note, check out this picture of him. Yes, it really is a man playing chess in a bed. This is Tony Miles, 1985. Apparently he had a bad back, so he decided to lay on a bed, face up, playing his opponent, and this is how the whole classical game went. I mean, can you imagine looking up from the board and making some kind of awkward eye contact, right? Things would have got a little bit weird. Hopefully it wasn't played on Valentine's Day, because this would just be a strange situation all round. But we'll jump back to the chess. I digress. Rook e1 played now by Magnus Carlsen, and bishop a7. Why did Hikaru take 2 tempos to go back with the bishop? I have no clue. Anything you can do, I can do better, Magnus. You want to run with your bishop? I'll do the same. So knight f1, manoeuvring. Knight e7, doing the same. d4, taking advantage of the last move, and Hikaru goes knight g6, defending his centre. Knight g3, b5, chasing back the bishop, and c5. Classic pawn structure for black. What do we call this one? I love making pictures out of the structures, right? Some kind of camel maybe. You know, here's the head on a6. There's the camel hump. Fun fact, by the way, the hump is full of rich fats apparently, not water, as is commonly believed at times. There's your camel pawn structure. a4, Magnus nibbling away at the long neck of the camel. Bishop b7, developing into the game. Bishop e3, a move you have to be careful of, because e4 now no longer protected by the rook, attacked twice, but there's no rook on e8, so you can't take pressure for a third time. It is covered enough, but you have to be mindful of this stuff. So b4 from Hikaru starts undermining the white pawn chain here, And now a5 from Magnus. Very classy positional move. Sitting on the head of this a6 pawn, making it kind of backwards and weak potentially in the long run. We get takes on c3, recaptures played, takes on d4, another recapture. Hikaru opening lines on the queen side. So often in these Spanish games, that's where black looks for play because white looks to go after the king. Look where all these pieces are pointing here. Generally, that's then where you want to play an attack because that's where your pieces are lined up. Bit of paint on the board there, a la Hikaru. Now we get bishop c6. What's the point of that? Well, maybe coming to b5. You also clear the b file. We get queen d2, and now this is careless of Hikaru Nakamura. Magnus has lined up the battery, right? His eyes are trained on the prize here. King h7 is best. Hikaru gets careless, goes rook e8. Magnus does not need a second invitation to smash and grab this black king here. Yes, he picks up the bishop and snaps off that pawn on h6. Love it. You've got to recapture or you're just getting destroyed. Still after recaptures, you're still getting destroyed. And this, by the way, reminds me of a video that Irina Krush did earlier. I watched it. Really nice channel she's got going. Very instructive. She's a strong player herself. And she talked about the power of bishops as long-range weapons, right? But in both directions, spraying. That's where they're superior to knights, the short-range jabbers as the knights are. So queen e7 from Hikaru. Very natural move, right? You want to go queen f8, cover the dark squares, exchange the ladies. But now this is the absolute star move of the attack. Now, if you really want to test your attacking skills, pause the video, see if you can find it right. It's not an easy one. How do you continue? You know, knight f5, so natural. Hit the queen, threaten mate on g7. But the queen simply slides back. Then how are you proceeding? You've got to retreat. If you jump in with this knight, well, h7's covered. You're not checkmating there. You can't lift a rook. You know, what do? How do you throw more fuel on the fire? Takes, then what? Well, here's the move. Well done if you found it. This is not an easy idea. It's bishop to b3. A silent, deadly move. No more queen f8. If you do that, then there's a winning shot. Well done if you see it. It's queen takes on g6. Check, using the fact that the pawn is pinned. That is brutal. No queen f8 possible. The king can't move, so you can't break that pin. So what does Hikaru do? Well, he intercepts the diagonal of the bishop, of course. Put a shield in the way of that sniper. What does Magnus do? He now takes on e5, pressuring the knight on f6 here, preparing to take it. So Hikaru captures with this knight, but it's not best. You know, the computer wants this. But at the very least, you can just exchange queens and be a pawn up. There's even lines where you keep the queens on the board. Just keep attacking, right? Not fun. So Hikaru takes the pawn here, but now knight to f5. Magnus doesn't care if you want to take and check and shatter the pawns. So what? You're threatening mate. Queen f8, thank you very much. Just picked up the free knight on f6. Now you're attacking and you're not even material down. Bishop hanging, king's going to clear, g-file's open, etc. It's deadly. It's game over. So Hikaru goes for a tricky move. Classic Hikaru, very resourceful. He takes on f2 with check. Now Magnus doesn't capture the bishop, but if he did, what's the big point? You've got two knights trained on the g4 square. These knights then winning home the game. White actually still better here because you win this queen and then you're still a pawn ahead here with a great end game, you know, this bishop backpedaling. But why go into all that when you can sidestep, stick the king in the corner and black's problems persist? You know, if you take this rook, well, now you're getting absolutely melted with queen g7 mate. I never actually got this line ready because that's why you just simply mate. So you have to actually stop the checkmate. Okay, queen f8, fine, queen f6. Once again, stuff's dropping. This is going to be loose soon potentially in this. I mean, I know it's covered by the rook for now, but the knights are hopping in. The rook could be lifting one day. It's horrible. So what do we, sorry, this is the game. This was literally played. Okay, I'm going nuts. You don't always keep up with these things. Rook e6 now played from Hikaru. Why doesn't he take the rook here? Well, this is the problem. You check, king's got nowhere to go. Queen's got to give itself up, because if you go king h7, this is a checkmate. Mixing up my lines, sorry. So this was the actual game. This is why you have to respond to this double knight check and mate threat or lose the queen. So rook e6 played.
Here, so a riskier approach.
Hits the queen, and now if this, queen takes and you x-ray defend with the rook on e6. So what does Magnus do? The finishing touch. Well done if you can see the move here. Queen g5 check. Lovely stuff, because if rook blocks here, which you want to play, then there's this check here. You're winning the rook next move, unless the queen takes. Then you win a queen here. If king g7 or h8, there's also ideas of taking here with check. That's a loose knight. You know, it's all collapsing. So knight g6 blocks the check instead. Magnus goes rook f1, and we see resignation. Why? Well, the bishop's attacked. Say you move it, well, then you take here. This is a fork. You're winning another piece. Everything's collapsing. Say you don't move the bishop. You take here to hit this one if you take me. Well, now your rook drops. You can't even take back without losing this one with check and everything breaking through. And if you take here, well, now the pawn's pinned. You still take with check. The king's getting slaughtered. So it's just purely game over. Resignation wasn't premature. That was the end of the proceedings.
What a game.
Yep.
What a win by Carlsen.
Now I've got to run. It's Valentine's Day as mentioned. I'm heading out for dinner with just a few friends here. Need to get my glad rags on and get going. Thanks very much for watching. Do hit subscribe if you never want to miss a future video. I'll be back with some wacky Magnus openings soon. Always love them. And for another epic game played of chess that didn't make sense, check out the video on screen. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you soon.